I don't even know why I agreed to come. Another brunch at the Ridgeview white tablecloths, endless mimosas, and a dozen ways for my family to remind me I'm the disappointment. It's Sunday, foggy like always in San Francisco. The dining room's packed with polished people and louder egos. I walk in wearing jeans, a simple blouse, and boots that have survived 3 warehouse floors. Everyone else looks like they're heading to a hedge fund pitch. Dad doesn't even stand up when he sees me, just waves me over with 2 fingers like I'm late to class. He's already deep in conversation with 3 of his business buddies. Finance, private equity, something, artificial scarcity. The usual. This is my daughter Alina, he says. She's between jobs at the moment. I smile. Tight, polite, the kind you give when someone's twisting the knife. Then comes Mason, of course. My cousin. Poster child for LinkedIn hustle culture. Navy suit Rolex peeking from his sleeve, hair gelled like he's afraid of movement. Still doing that robot side hustle? He asks, grinning. I pause. He knows the answer. They all do. But they like the version of me they've created better, the dropout with a weird hobby. The one who just couldn't make it work. I sip my coffee. Something like that, I say. Mason leans back in his chair, smug like he just closed a deal. Man, must be nice not having to worry about real deadlines. Real deadlines. I almost laugh. Last night, we pushed a real-time deployment to a Fortune 100 manufacturing plant. My team hasn't slept in 36 hours. But sure, Mason, tell me more about real deadlines. Before I can say anything else, a voice cuts through the room. Breaking news from CNN, the TV above the bar says. Heads turn, including mine. And then I see it. My face. On the screen. My voice calm and professional playing from the speakers. A lower third graphic appears Alina Reyes, founder and CEO of Axiom Labs. Every fork at the table freezes midair. Mason's mouth literally hangs open. Dad goes pale. I take another sip of coffee. Now suddenly they're all paying attention. And this time, they're not laughing. The funny part is, that CNN clip, the one that just aired in front of my entire family, it wasn't even supposed to air until next week. But I guess fate has a sense of humor. Because they spent years pretending I didn't exist. And now, they're all staring at a TV that just said my name. Alina Reyes, founder, CEO, the same lost cause who dropped out of Stanford 5 years ago. I was 23, halfway through my PhD in robotics and machine learning, working in a lab surrounded by brilliant minds and realizing every single day that academia wasn't where I belonged. I didn't want to publish papers. I wanted to build things, real things, tangible things. I wanted to fix the broken systems in the world nobody was paying attention to. So I walked away. Stanford called it unconventional. My dad called it the biggest mistake of your life. You had a guaranteed path, he said. A PhD from Stanford. Tenure. Security. Why throw it all away for some startup fantasy? I tried to explain that the future of automation wasn't being written in research journals. It was being written on loading docks, factory floors, and forgotten supply chains. But he couldn't hear it. Because I wasn't wearing a blazer. Because I didn't have a business card from McKinsey or a startup funded by his friends. Because I wasn't Mason. Mason, the golden child. MBA from Wharton, now VP at some fintech company that exists to make rich people slightly richer. He made 6 figures out of the gate. I made 0. He bought a condo with a rooftop view. I rented a 1-bedroom with flickering lights and a leaky sink. He got applause at every family event. And me, I got polite nods, followed by awkward silence. Still doing that robot thing. It's cool that you're following your passion. When are you going to get a real job? I heard it all over and over, every birthday, every holiday, every brunch like this one. The worst part wasn't the judgment. It was the disinterest. They didn't ask what I was working on, didn't want to know how it was going, didn't care about the prototypes or the early clients or the sleepless nights. They'd made up their minds. I wasn't succeeding. I was just being stubborn. Even my mom, who usually had my back, stopped bringing me up around her friends, said it was easier that way. So I stopped trying to explain. I stopped sending updates, stopped hoping for recognition or approval or anything really. But I still showed up. I kept going to dinners, birthdays, reunions. I kept hoping quietly, foolishly, that maybe one day someone would ask, "What are you building, Alina?" They never did. Not once. And now they're all watching the answer play out on national television. And just when I thought I'd made peace with being invisible at family gatherings, Dad stands up, taps his spoon against a champagne glass, and raises his voice like he's hosting an award show. "I just want to take a moment to congratulate Mason," he says, grinning. He was promoted to senior VP at Goldman Sachs last week, youngest in his division. The whole table erupts in claps and cheers. Aunt Lisa gasps like someone just proposed. My mom smiles, proud but quiet. She always claps a little softer when it's about Mason. He leans back, smug again. That smile he always saves for moments like this. "I mean, I knew I'd get there eventually," he says, "but still, kinda surreal." Someone raises a toast to Mason, to success, to making moves. And I sit there, smiling, nodding, swallowing it all, until I open my mouth. "That's awesome," I say. "Actually, I signed a contract this week, too." Dad glances over, already skeptical, with who he asks like he's indulging a child's story. "Boeing," I say, $75 million. The silence is immediate and sharp. Mason bursts out laughing. "Sure you did." I look at him, dead in the eyes. "I did," I repeat, calm, even. Dad clears his throat. "Alina, let's not derail brunch with imaginary numbers." Imaginary. 75 million, signed, legal, audited. But to him, still just a fantasy. I don't say anything. Because what's the point? He doesn't want to believe it. He's already decided it's not real. Because I don't fit the mold he respects. And even if I handed him the contract with the Boeing's letterhead, he'd still probably call it cute. I stand up, say I need the restroom, and I walk. Calmly, controlled. But my hands are shaking. I lock the stall door and just stand there staring at my reflection in the mirror. I can close a multi-million-dollar enterprise deal. I can lead a team of engineers across 4 countries. I can build systems that optimize entire factories from the ground up. But I can't get my own father to take me seriously. I take a deep breath, wipe the corners of my eyes, straighten my blouse, and walk back out. But when I return to the table, something's different. They're all silent, staring at the TV mounted above the bar. And then I hear it, that voice again. This week, we sat down with one of the most disruptive young minds in enterprise robotics. I stop mid-step. I know that voice. I know that interview. I turn my head. And there it is. My face, on the screen, speaking calmly, confidently, wearing the same blouse I have on now, the same one Mason mocked an hour ago. Underneath the chyron reads Alina Reyes, CEO Axiom Labs. No one says a word. Dad is frozen mid-sip. Mason's fork is hanging in the air. And I just walk back to my seat. Quietly, I sit down, cross my legs. And this time, I don't have to say a single word. The anchor's voice is calm but electric, like she knows exactly what this story means. "Meet Alina Reyes," she says, founder and CEO of Axiom Labs, recently valued at $1.1 billion. I hear the words, but I'm watching my family. Mason's jaw's locked. My dad hasn't blinked. The screen cuts to footage of our Oakland office engineers at work prototypes running whiteboards filled with notes and flowcharts. Then they show me, standing in front of our operations wall, real-time AI dashboards tracking factory automation across 5 continents. My voice comes through the speakers. "We automate complex industrial workflows using edge-based AI because traditional systems can't handle the velocity or volume of modern operations." I sound like someone they don't know, because they don't know me. They've never heard me talk about my work without someone interrupting, mocking, or changing the subject. The anchor keeps going. In Q2, her company helped one of the world's largest logistics firms save $68 million through system-wide optimization. Dad flinches. His spoon slips slightly against his plate. I glance at Mason. His forehead is creased, eyes scanning the screen like it's in another language. And maybe it is. Because none of this fits into the story they wrote for me. I was supposed to be the dropout, the disappointment, the quirky cousin who talked about robots but never showed receipts. But here they are, receipts, in high definition. Now the segment shifts again. Footage rolls of me giving a keynote at the Industrial AI Forum last spring. I'm on stage walking through a case study on real-time predictive maintenance using sensor fusion and machine learning. I'd invited my parents to that event. They didn't come, said it was too far and probably over their heads anyway. On the screen, the anchor is smiling now. At just 28, Alina Reyes is one of the youngest women to lead a unicorn in deep tech automation, an industry most VCs once considered too boring for billion-dollar valuations. Mason's hand is gripping his water glass a little too hard. Then comes the kicker. She owns 72% of the company, giving her an estimated net worth of over $800 million. The table shifts. Not with applause. Not with cheers like Mason got earlier. Just stunned silence. No one looks at me. Not yet. They're all still looking at the screen. Like if they stare long enough, maybe it'll turn into someone else. Someone easier to dismiss. But it doesn't. The segment cuts to black, and the anchor returns for a final comment. Axiom Labs represents the future of industrial automation, she says. And Alina Reyes, she's proving that brilliance doesn't always come in a three-piece suit or from a traditional path. I don't move. Neither does anyone else. For a full 10 seconds, the only sound in the room is the quiet hum of the ceiling fan. And then slowly, my dad turns toward me, like he's seeing me for the very first time. His face is unreadable. Shock, embarrassment, regret. Maybe all three. Mason still hasn't spoken. He's scrolling through his phone now, probably trying to fact-check CNN in real time. I look down at my plate. The same untouched eggs Benedict. The same coffee now gone cold. But everything else, completely changed. It's quiet. Too quiet. The kind that hums beneath your skin. Then, my aunt breaks it. She leans forward, squinting at me like I've grown a second head. Wait. You built Axiom, she asks. That's the company in Forbes this month. I nod. She blinks. Like, the Axiom Labs with the robot fleet. Yes, I say, just loud enough. Dad clears his throat, still staring at the table. You never told us it was this serious. I let out a breath, one I've been holding for 5 years. I tried, I say quietly. You weren't listening. Across from me, Mason's tapping furiously on his phone. I know that panic. The rush of needing to confirm what you just saw with your own eyes. He scrolls, then stops. His face falls. I watch the color drain from it as he reads headline after headline. Alina Reyes, the billion-dollar builder. Axiom Labs disrupts industrial AI. Forbes 30 under 30 automation queen. He turns his phone toward himself like he doesn't want anyone else to see. Too late. CNN keeps rolling clips one after another. There's a graph. Our valuation curve. There's a shot of me shaking hands with the Boeing COO. There's footage from the Series B announcement cameras flashing. Then they say it. She currently owns 72% of the company, placing her net worth at approximately $800 million. Nobody breathes. I glance at my dad. He's not looking at me. He's just staring off. Then I speak. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just the truth. I drive a Corolla. I work 12-hour days in warehouses, so you assumed I was failing. No one argues, because they all know it's true. Mason sets his phone down. He doesn't look at me, doesn't say a word. Which is new for him. Dad's phone starts vibrating on the table. He picks it up, glances at the screen, and freezes. He steps away from the table, walking slowly toward the patio with the phone still pressed to his ear. I hear his voice. Hey, Charles. Yeah. Yes, that was her. The one from the segment. Pause. No, I didn't know. I mean, I knew she had a company, but I didn't know. Another pause. A keynote. You want her to speak next quarter. I close my eyes. Charles. That's his old friend from MIT. They haven't spoken in years. But apparently, now that CNN has validated me, now he wants to catch up. Back at the table, my aunt's still watching me with a mix of awe and confusion. When did this all happen? She whispers. 5 years ago, I say. Why didn't you ever say anything? I almost laugh. I said it all the time, I tell her. You just never believed it. Mason finally speaks. His voice is flat, tense. You own 72%. Yes. Then, why live like that? He gestures at me. The outfit. The car. The entire way I show up. Because I don't need to prove anything with stuff I say. Success isn't the car you drive. It's what you build. He doesn't have a response. For once, Mason's out of words. Dad comes back to the table. His expression is strange part, stunned part, humbled part. Something I haven't seen before. He sits down slowly, says nothing. But in that moment, the table turns. I'm no longer the cautionary tale. I'm the one they all have questions for, and not one of them knows how to ask the first. They see the headline now. They see the valuation, the articles, the cameras, the spotlight, but they never saw this part. They never saw me sleeping on an air mattress on the floor of a converted storage room. The lab was freezing in winter and too hot in summer, but it was cheap. And it was ours. I used to duct tape towels to the window to block the light so I could sleep a few hours before another 16-hour sprint. Dinner most nights, instant noodles, sometimes saltines, and peanut butter if I was lucky. I rationed every dollar like it was oxygen. Because it kind of was. The first prototype took 7 months. We ran out of money in month 4. I maxed out 2 credit cards, sold my car, canceled health insurance, lived off coffee and pure desperation. We pitched 17 investors. 17. And every single one said no. Too risky. Too niche. Too technical. Not sexy enough. Come back when you have more traction. One told me straight-faced, "You're clearly smart, but this is more of a co-founder type idea. You don't strike me as a CEO." Translation: you're not what we pictured. And maybe you never were. I almost gave up after pitch number 12. I cried on the BART train ride home and seriously thought about going back to school, calling my old professor, pretending the whole thing never happened. But I didn't, because there were people counting on me. A small team who'd quit better jobs to follow a vision. Warehouse workers who told me, "If you can fix this, we'll finally have a shot at not working weekends." So I put my hoodie back on and went back to the lab. I started shadowing factory line workers, graveyard shifts, 2 a.m. to 10, sweeping floors with them, loading pallets, watching how orders got delayed because the software didn't understand real-world chaos. I took notes, pages and pages of notes. They thought I was crazy at first, a Stanford dropout showing up at their facility like she was undercover. But then I fixed something, a picking algorithm bug that saved them 3 hours a day. After that, they let me in. Started calling me boss, even though I didn't have payroll that month. And through all of it, my mom would text me late at night, "Are you sure you're okay living like this?" And every time I'd write the same thing. "I'm building something. One day you'll see." And now they finally do. But the truth is, that was the part that mattered. Not the $800 million, not the cameras, not the interviews, the air mattress, the rejection emails, the line workers who trusted me before anyone else did. That's where the story really started. And that's the part no headline ever tells. When my dad came back to the table, he looked older somehow. Not physically, but emotionally. Like something heavy had finally cracked open. He sat down slowly, eyes red, hands folded. For a second, no one said anything. Then he looked at me, really looked at me and said quietly, "I failed you, Alina." 3 words, and they hit harder than any insult he ever threw my way. Mom placed a hand gently on his arm, then turned to me. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You were always brilliant. We just didn't know how to understand what you were doing. We were scared. Scared I'd crash. Scared I'd never recover. Scared of what they couldn't control." I nodded. Because I already knew, even if I'd waited 5 years to hear it. Mason still hadn't spoken. He just stared at the condensation on his glass like it held all the answers he didn't want to ask for. Dad cleared his throat. I just got off the phone with Charles. He said MIT wants you to keynote next year's Tech and Ethics Summit. I smiled faintly. They reached out last week, I said. I told them I'd think about it. He looked surprised. Why didn't you say something? I gave a small shrug. I stopped trying to impress people who decided I wasn't impressive. He exhaled, slowly. I want to visit your lab, he said. Pause. I want to learn, not judge. I want to see what you've built. From your eyes this time. I held his gaze. And for the first time in a long time, there wasn't a wall between us. Thursday, I said. Come by in the afternoon. Bring Mason, too. Mason blinked, finally looked up. Meh. I nodded. Maybe you'll learn how real tech works. He didn't push back, didn't roll his eyes, didn't try to outsmart me. He just nodded, slowly, and said nothing. And for once, that was enough. The table shifted again. Not with tension, not with awkward silence, but with something else. Something like repair. Like maybe the damage wasn't permanent. Like maybe we were finally done pretending I was less than I am. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was just telling the truth. And for the first time, they were actually hearing it. Thursday afternoon came faster than I expected. Dad and Mason showed up early. Dad in a pressed button-down, trying not to look nervous. Mason in jeans, way more quiet than usual. I met them in the lobby. No TV cameras, no interviews, just us. Ready? I asked. They both nodded. We started with the engineering wing. Walked past glass-walled rooms filled with codes scrawled on whiteboards and people huddled around screens. One team was stress testing a robotic picking arm. Another was running a live simulation of a warehouse deployment in Texas. I introduced them to my lead ML engineer, then to the product design team, then to our operations manager. Every time I said, "This is my dad," or "This is my cousin Mason," they smiled and said the same thing. "Oh, we've heard a lot about you." Not sarcastic, not bitter. Just real. One of the senior engineers looked at Dad and said casually, "Alina built this whole vision from scratch, like literally from scratch. Basement to billion." Dad didn't say much. He just nodded, watched everything. Mason kept turning his head like he didn't know where to look first. The testing floor is the part I saved for last. Dozens of machines in motion, conveyor belts, tracking systems, real-time dashboards monitoring throughput and predictive maintenance across multiple continents. We walked slowly through it. Dad stayed behind, trailing us. I turned around once and saw him just standing there, watching everything happen. His face soft, still, quiet in a way I'd never seen before. Then Mason whispered to me, "This is insane." I raised an eyebrow. He shook his head like he couldn't believe it. "No, seriously, Alina, why didn't you say it was like this?" I looked at him for a long second, then said the only thing I could. "Because you wouldn't have heard it until CNN said it." He didn't argue. He just nodded, like he finally got it. Not just the company, but me? When we got back to the elevator, my dad cleared his throat. "I owe a lot of people an apology," he said. I gave him a small smile. "Start with yourself," I said. He looked surprised. "You spent 5 years convincing yourself I was failing, when deep down, I think you knew I wasn't." He didn't deny it, didn't defend it, just looked at me and said, "You're right." And for once, those words didn't come too late. I got home around 7, dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my boots, and finally exhaled. The apartment was quiet. Same place I've lived for 3 years. Small, functional, nothing flashy. It's not where people expect someone worth $800 million to live. But it's mine, and it's enough. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "Your father won't stop reading about robotics now." I smiled. Didn't reply. Not yet. Another message popped up. This one from Ava, my co-founder. "Warehouse pilot in Brazil went flawlessly. Want to join drinks? Everyone's heading to the rooftop." I typed back, "On my way." I grabbed my hoodie. And before I left, I stood for a second by the window. The city lights were just coming on. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had anything to prove. Not to them. Not to anyone. Because the truth is, validation doesn't come from TV segments or headlines. It comes from the quiet moments when your team believes in the mission, when the work makes life easier for someone you'll never meet, and when you finally realize you never needed their approval. You just needed to keep building.